Welcome back to the second half of Poetry Perspective number 36. Very, very, very excited. Okay. Second half, hopefully, the chat will... Our second feature is Colin Clark. And Colin is a regular who has been coming here all year. It's been really, really great watching his poetry grow and expand and flourish. He's absolutely beautiful. I almost wore my Marvin the Martian t-shirt in his honour because he has a Wookiee t-shirt and they're both aliens. But I thought, no, control yourself. But here's a little bit about Colin that he sent me. And I don't necessarily agree with this, Colin. I just might say. He said something about having no talent. Now, I must disagree with this, but I shall still read it. Colin began his solo performing career at the age of 6 after finding the stage door at the Royal Opera House Covent Garden open one day and began being dragged in by his dad for an unforgettable rendition of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star to an audience of 1. Well, after a 4-decade hiatus, he's back. Giving away your age there, young Colin. Colin has regularly graced the Poetry Perspective stage since the start of the year with his electric brand of poetry. Electricity for you. Somewhat experimental and under-rehearsed, mostly inspired by modern life and with a wicked passion for a dark, humorous twist. What else can I say about Colin that hasn't already been said? Handy wicket keeper, enthusiastic but relatively untalented artist. See, I disagree. There it is, he said it. Untalented, not true. Bird watcher, Western Bulldogs tragic, surprisingly articulate for an engineer. My father's a diesel engineer. He is surprisingly articulate too. So, there you are. And of course, here's Adam Gibson. I'm not going to read that bio because you are about to give the retrospective and it's going to be wonderful. So big round of applause for Colin Clark.
Thanks, Lish. Thanks for everyone coming out tonight on this fairly miserable, cold night. I will do the introduction to my my superstar support act here, Mr. Brendan Anderson. So we're going a bit musical. Just a little bit of background on Adam Gibson. So Adam Gibson, he's a spoken word artist, but with music. Spoken word artist who we've performed a number of songs with his band, The Aerial Maps. I've even got the T-shirt to prove it. It's one of Alex's magic little finds. She has this really good knack of finding good stuff, catching good stuff on the radio, and then we sort of start listening to it together. And sometimes we find some stuff that we really like. And this is one of her little gems. So we'll probably with no further ado, we'll crack into the first one. Brendan. The magic's either there or it's not. You can't force it. The magic's either there or it's not. And God knows you can't force it. I'm thinking about a magic time and a magic place. When the dew's falling on the grass, it's forming on the windscreens of the cars. And you can hear it now. You can hear your mum saying, just be home before the streetlights go on. Be home before the streetlights go on. It's a magic time and a magic place. Because the magic's either there or it's not. You can't force it. The magic's either there or it's not. God knows you can't force it. Just be home before the streetlights go on. So dash home through those long summer twilights. Dash home with grass stains on our knees and the oily smell of the ocean not far away, filling your noses. Dash home through those roast-filled kitchens, the barbecue backyards, the Sullivans on TV lounge rooms, the Onka Paringa bedrooms and the Dennis Lilly driveways. Just be home before the streetlights go on. Because the magic's either there or it's not. You can't force it. The magic's either there or it's not. And no, you can't force it. So end that game of continuous tips. Light the last welcome spring. Fire the final ball shooter. Wrap up the slip and slide. Pull the stumps from the ground. Pick up the sloppy joes marking the try line. Put your surfboard on your head. Turn from the beach because the day is over. The icy pole's eaten. The sunny boy's sucked. Galaga switched off. And the pennies are flashing. Game over. Game over. Because the magic's either there or it's not. And you can't force it. You just have to be home before the streetlights go on. So straggle down those streets, run through the fences, up the boulevards, look for the flicker of the light, watch it shoot along the telegraph poles and time it. Make sure you know the time of its arrival outside your mum's window. Exactly. Ah, the dew forming on the grass. Use the sound of the Mr. Whippy van coming around the corner. Just be home before the streetlights go on. Just be home before the streetlights go on. Just be home before the streetlights go on. Looking into old photographs, I imagine the feelings of those particular snapshot days. The temperatures and the sounds and the smell of the honeysuckle. We'd rip the top off and we'd lick. I searched for myself in those crowds of silent noise, the faces of people who were then friends, expressing their essential sound and essence through frozen smiles. And the angle of their eyes, the angle of their eyes. Some people are just naturally at the centre of every photograph they're in. All faces and bodies and light are always beaming their way. Then there's others, off to the left, or to the right, or just seemingly tacked onto that group, embrace, like an afterthought. An afterthought. And you remember them, and you remember them for that fact. They tried hard, and while it was never quite enough, it was also just a bit too much. Well, that was before the accident, or just after he started going out with her, or on the ski trip that time at the Jindabyne Hotel, near the fireplace. It got ugly with a girl from the North Shore, named Bridget. You must watch those girls from the North Shore, named Bridget. Bring you undone every time. Or that time at the Weddings Parties Anything concert, Serena's at the Coogee Bay Hotel. You crowd surfed all the way to the bar, came back with 2 Jim Beam and Cokes, crowd surfing still. You didn't spill a drop. Didn't spill a drop. Didn't spill a drop. That time we went to Townsville. All the rivers were dry, all the way, but we found a water hole back there somewhere. We went swimming, feeling guilty, and we sang, "All the rivers run dry," Hunters and Collectors. When we returned to the scene of the crime, committed no crime, we were only 19 years old, nothing much mattered. The Victor Harbour and Margaret River, the photos we took, Nirvana, the first big day out, 1992, the Hordern Pavilion. You held a camera above the crowd. You held a camera above the crowd. Glengarry Point. Someone backed over my 6.2 Dahlberg in their 4-wheel drive. Squashed the thing flat. That was the end of it. That was the end of it. There's another time that I remember. I'm about 8. His eyes are shining, aware and howling like the dog Anthony I'm patting. My East jersey, red, white and blue against the wild grass. These pictures tell us how far we've come and how far we have gone. You had long hair, your face was screwed in laughter. Your eyes were unsuspecting, they were huge and desirous. They wanted the lot, they desired the whole thing. Everything was unfurling from there on. They wanted it all. The thing that I've realised is that, unlike in photographs and in thoughts, everybody's eyes are always much smaller in real life. Everybody's eyes are always much smaller in real life. Everybody's eyes are always much smaller in real life. Everybody's eyes are always much smaller in real life. In 1980, when my sister was 19, she found an old car with the keys in the ignition near the banks of the estuary. She was 19 too when she left here altogether. She never came back. In the winter of 1984, an East Coast low pressure system destroyed the fleet in their moorings, smashed the jetty and flattened half the town in a hailstorm the Weather Bureau somehow failed to mention might happen. Somehow failed to mention might happen. The beaches on either side of the inlet disappeared in one day, and the rocks of the breakwater became cliffs overnight. It was that night she called from somewhere down the coast, said a wobbegong shark had been washed into a local swimming pool at the height of the storm. "What do we do?" she said. "Get a blanket," I said. "What for?" she said. "Get a blanket," I said, "and pick it up like that. Just pick it up like that." On the Eyewitness News of the World that night, I saw my sister with a blue-eyed man holding the edges of a dark and wet blanket, and they were hauling a shark out of a pool, and it gasped for air before they dropped it back in the sea, and it swam away very quickly. It swam away very quickly. You're as good as a hot Milo on a July night. You're as good as a sneeze. You're as good as the click in your ears when you yawn. You're as good as the smell of chlorine. Better than petrol. As unbelievable as the fact that my mum's cats remember me. You're as good as a beer in a tiled pub after 10 hours on the highway. You're as good as the hard soles of feet after 6 months of summer. You're better than Guinness, better than Spain. You're as good as a sleeping, as incredible as the silence of the sea. You're as good as a chop chop at the movies, as good as the ends of newly cut hair, as good as Oscar and Lucinda, as good as Bliss. You're as good as Jim Beam, as good as a place without a postcode, better than Diesel and Dust. You're as good as a pie from the Woodburn Cake Shop. You're as good as a Neenish tart. You're that good. Okay. Just got one more to go, and you can put you out of your misery. At the end of my roads, there's always a sandy path, an open air shower, a car with surfboard inside, ready for use. At the end of my roads, sounds and faces and sights retained through the mess of movement on those coastal nights. But the girl I loved who didn't love me, what happened to her and where is she? The girl I loved who didn't love me, what happened to her and where is she? She is in the blinding sunlight. She says that she's alright. She tells me not to call. She's taken my number off her wall. At the end of my roads, she's in a shack at Protester Falls. Beds of bracken. What will happen? What will happen? We lose people in the sunlight, lost in the shadow, lost in the silence. Ah, we will fight and she'll take flight. Back to Spring Hill, back to Redcliffe, a house in the blinding sunlight. The girl I loved who didn't love me, what happened to her and where is she? She is in the blinding sunlight. She says that I'm alright. She's in the blinding sunlight. She tells me I'm alright. And there's a radio in an old leather case. Where did she go? It all connects, it all makes sense. In faces and silence. We lose people in the sunlight, in the shadows and in the silence. She's in the blinding sunlight. She tells me she's alright. She tells me not to call. She's back at Spring Hill, back in Redcliffe, back on the sandy path, the back of Protester Falls. She is in the blinding sunlight. She is in the blinding sunlight. The girl I loved who didn't love me. Girl I loved who didn't love me. She is in the blinding sunlight. In the blinding sunlight. In the blinding sunlight. In the blinding sunlight. Thank you. Thank you, Brendan. Lovely work.
Oh, cheers, lads. That was so